Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. Here in England, we're in the middle of a very cold winter, and a cold winter means a cold house, and a cold house means cold resin. Cold resin is very difficult to work with. It's extremely bubbly and thick. So I usually end up heating up my resin in a sink full of hot water. The only problem with that is the hot water in the sink doesn't stay hot for very long, so it's not as effective as it could be. Luckily for me, Let's Resin came to my rescue and sent me one of their new resin preheating machines. Let's see how well it works. Right then, here it is. It's very smart looking and compact in size, and so it fits nicely on my craft room table, and it really doesn't get in the way. It can just be sat there waiting to be used, and it's very simple to use. As you can see, all you've got on the inside is like the little trivet to stand your bottles or cups onto, and that's as simple as it is, nothing too complicated. When you switch it on, the control panel lights up and you can set your time and temperature. On the left is the time setting button, and I'm setting mine to 40 minutes, which is recommended if it's winter time. And on the right is the temperature setting button, and you can adjust it in just the same way with the plus and minus buttons until you're at the temperature you want it to be. I set mine to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that was just to demonstrate really. I'm not ready to use it at this stage, but the good thing is once I turn it off, when I turn it back on again later, it will have remembered what I last put it in, so I won't need to set it again. But for now, we'll turn it off. So you probably know that some bottles of resin are very large, and most of mine are. That's the cheapest way to get it. I prefer to get it in large quantities. So yeah, if you were going to have a heater big enough for those bottles, it would be unrealistic. It just, it'd be massive, wouldn't it? So it does only take small bottles, but that's not a problem because there's a way around it. It does actually take larger bottles than what I've just shown you, but I didn't have the next size up. So the option I think most people will take with this is to pour their resin into their mixing cups and put the mixing cups in there. But if you do that, you don't want to put the lid on because the water vapour will get into the resin. So only use it with the lid off if you're using measuring cups like that are uncovered. I actually opted for a different option. I had these lidded glass bottles, which I use when I'm freezing stock or something in my freezer. And I had quite a lot of them because it was cheaper to buy them in large quantities. And I thought, yes, they'll be perfect. If I label my bottles so that I know exactly which resin goes in those bottles, I can always use them for the same resin. And yeah, I thought that'd work really well. So I labelled my bottles, and today I'm using the Fast Cure resin from Let's Resin, and I'm marking it with which resin it is, but also whether it's part A or part B. My bottles of Fast Cure resin were almost empty, so I just emptied them into the glass jars, and that gave me a bit more space in my cupboard, and that's always good. As you can see, because it's Fast Cure resin and because it's very, very cold, it's coming out very thick and gloopy, and that's why you should always preheat the Fast Cure resin, because you'll see in a minute it gets lots of bubbles in there if it's cold, and even if it's not too cold, because it's so thick, it can be quite bubbly. And there it is, just to show you just how bubbly it is. So the next job was to put them into the heater and add the water. Now, it's always best to add the water after you've put the containers in there because you don't want them floating around. If you put in too much water and you've just got a little bit of resin in your cups that you've put in, they'll float and you don't want that. So put your containers in there first, then add the water. Now, I wasn't sure, I couldn't find anything in the instructions that mentioned whether you should fill it with cold water or hot water. I used cold water, but I think next time I'm going to try filling it with warm water so it takes less time to heat up. So there it is, there's the water in there, and because there's lids on my jars, I can put the lid on the resin preheater. In the instructions, it recommends setting the temperature to between 104 and 122 degrees Fahrenheit. As you already know, I'm doing mine at 110. And the reason I decided to do that is because it's fast cure resin and I didn't want it to be too hot. I thought it might give me less working time, which is already shorter with it being fast cure resin. So yeah, I went for 110. And as you already know, it was 40 minutes for the heating. And when I turned it on and went to set the temperature, I realised that it's just remembered exactly what I'd done before. So I didn't actually need to change anything. I'm just doing a little bit of demonstrating there. I do like pressing the buttons. I got a bit carried away, but I didn't need to do anything. It was just ready because I'd already set it earlier. So that's great. Next time I use it, it will be already done for me. So perfect. Now, what I did find, and I'm going to fast forward this now, I did find it took quite a while. It was almost 10 minutes to get up to the temperature that I wanted it to be. And that's why I said next time I think I'll start off with warm water. And here we are 40 minutes later, and it turns itself off when it gets to 0. So let's have a look to see if it's made much difference. And there it is. What a difference. There's hardly any bubbles in there. And there's something I learned from reading the instructions, you know. Preheating your resin isn't just to get rid of bubbles. It also improves the transparency and hardness of your finished project. So that's a bonus, isn't it? I never even realised that. Overall, I'm very happy with my resin preheater. You do have to think ahead. Obviously, it adds more time. You know, if you want to make something quick, you might think, oh, I don't want to wait 40 minutes to warm up my resin. But if you can plan in advance and get it warming up while you're getting everything else ready, it's not a problem at all. And yeah, I love it. I would highly recommend it. Well, it was a very short video this week, but hopefully it's been useful to you. Please look in my video description for links and discount codes, and I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.